called the conjunto music style that's popular in the border states. Its evolution began in northern Mexico and Texas in the mid 19th century when German, Polish, and Czech immigrants introduced the diatonic button accordion. The accordion, drums, and the bajo sexto, a 12-string instrument from the guitar family, and a 12-string steel string bass acoustic or electric guitar form what they call the Tex-Mex sound. Until recently, the border was very fluid and the cultures intermixed easily. But things have changed, of course, in the last 4 years. Tejanos is what they're called, Texans of Mexican descent, and the white folks around them hold these festivals and events with awards for the most popular songs. So today's piece, I think, is just going to be Spanish in a way to kind of illustrate that some of the areas of our country are bilingual and bicultural. So, John During, take it away.
Voy a cantar estos versos, aunque yo no soy de aquí. Yo soy puro mexicano, soy de San Luis Potosí. Caminando y caminando, he llegado a San Antonio. Me encontré muy buen trabajo y también con el demonio.
Next week, I'll give you the English version of that song that these guys are singing. So they go back and forth between English and Spanish on the border. And so a lot of people are very bilingual. I don't know if you heard last week when Kathleen Thomas spoke. Her dad was president of the Nogales, Arizona Rotary Club. And he was bilingual.
With audio.
Somebody needs to put their mute on.
Thank you, Rod. Anyway, so the idea is to alert our members that we are an international service club, not just a local club. And I hope that sits well with our members. Let's see, I'd like to welcome our fellow Rotarians and guests to our meeting number 5281. Today's birthdays are Larry Donatoni, who's with the Santa Clara University Department of Alumni Relations. James McCaskill was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, raised in Atlanta. He graduated from Wheaton College outside of Chicago as an Episcopal priest, works with Sunday Friends, empowering low-income families to break the cycle of poverty. So happy birthday to our two guys. And I want to introduce our council member, Maya Esparza. She's in District 7, as you'll see in the map that John is going to put up. Her parents were teachers here, and so she had a long appreciation to education. She's long been passionate about community empowerment, has helped work with homeless veterans, is a founding board president of the Latinas Contra Cancer, which is, of course, the Spanish equivalent of what Gay Crawford does, and has taught the master's course in public administration at San Jose State after working for Congressman Zoe Lofgren and former council member Nora Campos. So I'm hoping that council member Maya Esparza, who is with District 7, will be able to join us. Maya, are you with us? Come in, Maya. Well, I did tell her it was going to be at 12:18, so maybe it's a little early for her. So she is the council person that worked with all those folks that were affected by the flooding of the creek here a couple years ago. She's gotten her hands wet. She's been very active in nonprofit organizations when she started with Zoe Lofgren and with Councilmember Nora Campos, and she served as Nora's chief of staff. So she has some exposure to city government, and so she's no newcomer to our city office administration. So let's see if she can come on board and tell us a little bit more about what the challenges are and her district and what she would like to let us know about what she's doing. Okay, are you with us now, Maya? Come in, Maya. Well,
I don't think she's on the call.
she should be because she was sent the link, and maybe she's having trouble with the link.
Fernando, do you know whether Maya is related to Charles Esparza? Remember, Charles was the first director of the Model Cities program back in the 70s.
Yeah, I used to work for Charles, cleaning the meat counters at his shop there. He and Lester Esparza had a meat market out on the backyard behind my house in East San Jose. And I don't know if he and she are related. My guess is that she's not because her parents were teachers, but for some reason, Esparza is not an uncommon surname in Spanish.
Ah, I see.
But yeah, I remember him fondly as well as Lester, his brother.
Yeah, me too.
Well, let me see. Maybe I should try calling the office.
He's probably at home.
No, no. I was in touch with their staff.
Hello, Fernando.
Yeah.
This is Nick Caspar, council member as far as the chief of staff. She's
Right.
on right now.
Okay, I was
Hi.
just about to call you. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Hello, Maya. We just
Hi.
introduced you and told them all about you.
Uh-oh.
So take it away. You got it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. This is such a pleasure. I can't wait till we all recover from COVID and I got to see you all in person. I actually wanted to just talk a little bit about District 7. And District 7, I know folks can see the map right now, but for folks that haven't had an opportunity to spend time in District 7, I want to just describe it a bit. It's a very, very diverse population in the heart of the city. District 7 elected the city's first African-American council member. Some of you may remember Iola Williams. We're the proud home of the Black Kitchen Cabinet. District 7 also elected the city's first Vietnamese American council member, Madison Nguyen. And we're the proud home to Little Saigon, the Vietnamese American Cultural Center, and the Viet Heritage Gardens. We have a majority Latino population in District 7. And I know many of you are aware of Emma Prush Park, so you can come to the other side of Story and King and hang out in Placita. And then when you're done, you're welcome to go back to District 5 and hang out with Veggie Lucian and all the wonderful things that happen in Emma Prush Park. District 7 is also home to a very vibrant and historic Filipino population that is actually historic throughout the city's east side. We're home to the city's Cambodian population, as well as the Pacific Islander population. District 7 has some challenges and some imbalances. District 7 has, according to a housing study, has the city's census tract with the highest poverty and segregation in the city. We have some of the city's poorest neighborhoods in District 7. We have the busiest fire station. Some of you may know Tully Road, which answers more calls than all the fire calls in Mountain View and Santa Clara combined. We also have the city's busiest police district, District Lincoln, which responds to about 10,000 more calls a year than the next busiest police district. District 7 has the largest number of homeless shelter beds in the city. We have the largest number of extremely low income housing in the city and the least number of market rate housing in the city. We also have some assets that you might be familiar with. We're home to the Happy Hollow Zoo, and many of you may be familiar with the wonderful work of the Happy Hollow Foundation, who does such amazing things. You might be familiar with History San Jose and the iconic Japanese Friendship Garden. which actually we are restoring this year. And once COVID is over, I welcome you to celebrate in the restored tea house. We have the Giant Stadium, and we actually were just expanded an arena that will be home to the Barracuda at Sharks Ice. And we're home to some other assets that you might not be familiar with, which I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about the Monterey Corridor. We're home to one of the city's precious industrial areas. And actually in District 7, our industrial area is actually home to a lot of very diverse businesses, a lot of small businesses, a lot of homegrown businesses that have been built in San Jose in District 7. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll talk about a couple of things, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the exciting economic development things that we're doing. But before that, I wanted to address COVID and the impacts to the city. The city is doing some incredible things to address COVID. The mayor and the city council, we actually had the first eviction moratorium in the state to really help folks in our city. I represent District 7, and most of 95122, which is the hardest hit zip code in the county, as well as most 95111, which is another of the top 5 hardest zip codes in the county. The health and the economic impacts of COVID have impacted the East Side and District
You have
7.
one more minute.
Okay.
Maya.
Okay, in incredible ways. And so I just wanted to bring that up. And the other thing that I'll talk about with my last minute is I wanted to thank the mayor for creating the Monterey Corridor Working Group to revitalize the Monterey Corridor as the southern gateway to the city. So even in COVID, the city is investing in the Monterey Corridor in transportation, in land use, and in blight, including picking up over 1 million pounds of trash along the Monterey Corridor. But we're doing some exciting land use and planning along the Monterey Corridor, and I hope you can join us.
Great. Thank you very much, Maya. I was hoping you would mention the Raza Historical Society that's also there at Historical
That's
Park.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and good luck to you as we get into this new year. Next, we've got Fine
Thank you.
Opportunities with Gay Crawford. She's the founding chair of the Cancer Care Point. Gay, you're going to introduce our Fine Opportunities. Larry Stone?
Yeah, we have a big one today, I think. Larry, who was named assessor in 1994, been reelected 5 times, and been written up as one of the most powerful people in San Jose. So Larry, what do you have for us?
Well, thank you, Gay and President Fernando. You know, yesterday was the first day of my 80th year. And so I'd like to ring the bell 10 times.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
That kind of begs the question, I guess. You're 80 years old, why not 8 times?
8 or 80.
And it's not really because I hope to live to be 100, but we were all hoping that our friend, Bob Key, would make it to 100. And he almost did. So the last 2 rings are in memory of Bob Key, and that's why I'm wearing a bow tie today. And so give me 10 rings.
Okay, here they go. Is that 10?
Must be.
Here's one more.
Hey,
You know, the history behind this is that there was a contest between 2 Rotary clubs in New York City, and the winner was to receive a ship's bell from one of the last wooden ships that were in the harbor back in the early 1900s. There was one of the wooden ships they were dismantling. So they took the ship's bell and they mounted it on a some of the wood from that ship, and the losing club gave it to the winner, and they used that to begin their meetings. And from that has blossomed this custom of using a bell to begin or signal the beginning of our formal sessions and to end them, actually. I've been remiss in that I haven't rang the bell for ending the session because I guess we weren't meeting in person. But anyway, that's the history behind the bell. So thank you very much, Larry. That's very generous of you. And it helps give our fund for the foundation an impetus because I was kind of not kind. I was very disappointed to learn that only maybe 25 to 30% of our members actually contribute to our foundation, and I'm hoping that that realization and the fact that we count on our members' contributions to help fund the work that our committees do. We have over 50 committees. Anyway, back to this. We've got, because of impeachment proceedings in Washington, D.C., our previously scheduled program speaker, Adam Schiff, has asked to reschedule his talk until another day, and I kind of expected that. So Suzanne St. John Crane, the chair of the program committee, will introduce today's speaker, who volunteered, is our fellow Rotarian, Ann Ravel. So are you ready, Miss St. John Crane?
I am. Thank you, President Fernando. Good to see everybody today. Yeah, literally like any minute there's a vote. So indeed, Congressman Adam Schiff is a little busy today. So we're grateful to have wisdom in the room, lots of wisdom in the room about our democracy and about political campaigns and about how we consume media. And how we can be more discerning citizens. So while I don't have a formal introduction for Ann Ravel, we know her certainly as the former chair of the Federal Elections Commission under President Obama, and the chair of the California Fair Political Practices Commission, and of course, luminary here in Santa Clara County. So today we're really going to focus a conversation. So please help me in welcoming Ann Ravel as our speaker today. We're so delighted to have you, Ann. Thank you so much for being here, especially on a moment's notice. Literally, guys, got the call from Steve Ellenberg at 7 a.m. So we pulled this together pretty quick. And just so delighted that you stepped into pinch hit here. And we really want to focus a conversation on misinformation, social media's role, and our role as citizens, right, in this democracy and in this moment. And I just want to start by saying that as CEO of ALF, I mean, and you know this, Ann, you're a senior fellow of the organization. I mean, as is Fernando. What I do almost every day is talk to people who I don't agree with, and I have dialogues with them about democracy, about racism in America, about our common good. And, I want to recognize and just call out that this club, right, has members that are conservative, liberal, and everything in between. We are a bit of a melting pot here in Rotary. And what we do have in common, though, because we wouldn't be Rotarians if we didn't, is a love of country. And, the health of our country and democracy is of the utmost importance. And so I want to call on all of us today as Rotarians, as Americans, to meet this moment, right? And this conversation with an open heart and with an open mind, knowing that we all have a lot of work to do in this country to heal and move forward. So with that, Ann, welcome.
Thank you. And clearly what you're saying is so important because the concerns we have about our democracy are just what you're talking about, that everybody doesn't feel that they have a voice. So I'm in total agreement with your preface to the conversation.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to start off with, and I will say that we hope to have 10 minutes left of questions. So if you'd like to put questions in the chat for Ann, please do. But we'll engage in a conversation here for about 20 minutes that I hope will address some of what you're thinking out there, Rotarians. Certainly been on my mind. I want to start with one of the most extraordinary aspects of this moment that we're living in that keeps coming up for me and for others I know. And that is that Americans are in complete opposition with each other about truth, about what is actually real. So I'm not even talking about policy. We can have policy differences all day, right? But this is really about what is the truth and what is actually happening and real. So, Anne, how do we get here? And how, from your vantage point, do we come to a shared view, not necessarily about policy, but just about what is true?
Mhm. Well, we definitely are at the place that you're talking about. And I think that it's very obvious that there are a number of factors that have gotten us to where we are. One of them is, and this has been polled for many years, since the 50s, about trust and confidence in government and government institutions. And from the 50s on, in the 50s, 78% of people said that they trusted the government to do what's right most of the time. And now it is below 19%. It's shocking what has happened. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of them, and you alluded to it, are the informational systems that we have that have changed. And of course, everybody is focusing on social media for a good reason, because social media tends to spread the most inflammatory, the most false information more than information that is true, because people seem to think that it is more interesting to send that to their friends and others. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I have an example of that, which is when I first started looking into these issues after the 2016 election, I was asked to speak to the US Senate, to the Democrats, about this issue. And there was a communications person there who was discussing that fake, and it was fake, false newspaper article saying that Hillary Clinton was killing babies in the basement of a pizza parlor. And that false newspaper post was shared millions of times. And when the Washington Post debunked it and said, this isn't true, and fact checked it, it was only shared a couple of hundred times. So the social media itself, because of its profit model, tends to do that.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit too, Anne,
Okay.
because as vice chair of the Federal Elections Commission in 2014, even you raised this issue, right? I've read about it on CNN's site about digital deception, right? And so the question is, has the government fallen short in regulating media? You know, having been in media and create TV and television, understanding what public access stations can air and can't. It's very interesting because Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are not regulated that way. And in fact, they are a public square. So my question to you is, I mean, ultimately, is this government not regulating these sites well enough? Or is it American citizens not living up to our responsibility to be discerning about what we consume?
Yeah, I think that the issue of citizens not being discerning is a complicated one, because for a lot of people, it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. And I think that that's the issue of media literacy is important, but I'm not sure that that's going to solve the problem. Really, what the problem is, both the government and internet platforms have fallen short. Because they propagate information, the platforms hate, voter suppression, and incitement to violence, which we've seen recently. That is illegal. That is illegal to do under the Constitution. So the government can actually regulate on this issue and have not. There are no laws that regulate the internet thus far, either about disclosure, for campaign propaganda, or any of the things that apply to other media. And of course, the platforms themselves have failed to even enforce their own policies. So that too is a problem. But there is hope on the horizon, because HR1 which is a bill that was introduced in Congress at the beginning of last session, and this session may have a chance of passing, and that bill will have some impact on this issue.
Anyone that's watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix has as an inside view. It's terrifying to watch that movie, frankly. And yet I still use Facebook. But if you watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, you get this view of how Silicon Valley's own social media companies have built systems really to divide, to segregate, to influence. So here's a long question. Are the actions of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to shut down President Trump's access a sign of moral reckoning, a move to prevent more domestic terrorism because we have, whether it's the FBI or DOJ or whoever saying, shut it down now, this is an emergency? Or frankly, is it just a safe response to save face for these companies, given the authority that's been threatening them in the first place to regulate them is going to leave office in a week? What do you think?
Well, first off, let me say that The Social Dilemma is something everyone should watch. But what I worry about that film is, they do talk about the algorithms and how it pushes these things out and helps to divide people. And the same thing is with micro-targeting that they do to certain groups that they know are susceptible. But they don't talk about the problems with democracy, and that's what I really care about in social media, and in the issue of social media. And so, frankly, I and many other groups have been calling on tech companies, platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and others to not continue to allow that there is this hate speech and violence. And, for example, you've all probably heard about Stop Hate for Profit, that most recently has been talking about how it has caused voter suppression, et cetera. And they could have been doing something about it and have not. And they knew it was on their platform. So I believe, I hate to be cynical, but clearly in this instance, the violence and the publicity about all of this has made them suddenly come to the reckoning, even though they knew that it was happening on their platforms. They knew that they were housing the Proud Boys and the QAnon people, and that those things were all about hate and violence. And so I don't think that it's out of a moral reckoning, honestly. I think it's a little bit too little and too late, but hopefully that will make them stand up and listen. But, the problem with them is that this is truly their business model. And so it's complicated for them because when they micro-target, they get more clicks, they get more ads, they get more money.
So that begs the question, right? Do we want Facebook regulating our free speech?
No, we do not. It does not beg the question. The problem is, of course, that the government can't regulate free speech. We can't force a particular kind of regulation, except those things that are already illegal because of the First Amendment and the way the First Amendment has been interpreted. So it needs to be a partnership with platforms. Definitely needs government regulation and government requirements and transparency. But on some things, unfortunately, we have to leave it to Zuckerberg and et al. I know it's not the best situation.
Well, and free speech is, it's core, right? It's core to our democracy in our country. And Eric Liu, who wrote the book Become America, talks about that America is work. It's work. It's work to be a citizen. It's work to be an active participant. And perhaps over the last several years, we've become more passive. And now it's time for us to get to work about how we show up. What are your thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we have sort of accommodated ourselves to the divisiveness in the country and to the extreme positions that people have taken. And also, I mean, the government itself, look, the reason why so many people feel dissatisfied, in part, it's COVID. In part, the issue about trust in government is really important because, you know, government has to show that they believe in integrity and fairness and openness in our institutions, and that we're using power that's given to government by the public essentially to protect citizens and to include everybody. And that has not been the case. And a lot of people don't believe it's the case and are very, very upset about that and concerned about it. And so, I mean, government has a real responsibility, but we citizens too have to. And I think I didn't get to answer in the first question about what other causes there have been. And one of them is the lack of civic education, because people do not understand how government works and how.
You've been passionate about this, Anne. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we, so there's an opportunity there, and that's a real call to action, I think, to Rotarians and others about. And I told my kids 4 years ago after the last election, this is going to be an incredible civics lesson for all of us as we watch this unfold and understand what the laws of our country are. You know, I want to go back a little bit too, move to how people make it to government. Right? How do they get there? So you were quoted Monday in the New York Times reflecting on the actions of corporations pulling back on their political contributions to those who supported overturning the election. And, you know, we all know you spent a significant, part of your career fighting for campaign finance reform. So the question is there hope here that government can put in place regulations that ensure citizens, not corporations, are ultimately choosing who's in power?
Right. Well, to go back to, my adulation of HR 1, which isn't a panacea, but it's certainly full democracy reform. And among those reforms are campaign finance reforms, which, as probably most people here know, I feel very strongly about. And one of them is to put in place small donor provisions, even on the federal level, so that more people feel that they can participate. Because it is true when this is another example from polling, people often say that, and this was something that was said very publicly in 2016 election, that, we don't feel that government is working for us. They're only working for the wealthy, and we don't have any voice. And so why should we vote, for example, or participate civically? And that is so important for there to be more ability for people to participate, not only as candidates, but also just in the community.
So want to ask about how we move forward here and how we start to heal. And you can't fix it until you can feel it, right? Yeah. And we're all feeling it a lot right now in terms of where we're at and how divided things are. I've been, like you all, I'm sure, have been watching all of the news coverage and interviews with rioters, with protesters, people that just came there to protest something. I can't help but notice the similarities with this almost cult-like psychology and belief system. And, the advice given from psychologists to folks who want to get their loved ones out of cults is, the most important piece of advice is not to criticize, condemn, or judge, because that actually pushes people away. I heard Van Jones say the other night on CNN, we need a glide path for those folks for electeds, or perhaps folks that are really passionate about Stop the Steal, for those influencers to change their mind, a glide path. Do you agree? And what would that look like?
Well, first I want to say, of course, we can't condone the violence, and we cannot, and we have to require accountability for what has happened. But I do agree that a lot of people in this country, and this sort of augments some of the problems, feel that they've, lost economic power, and they have, they're concerned, as I said, that people don't have, a voice in government and that there's elitists and the like. And I do think that we have to try to establish a democracy that works for everybody and not use a way that to have the conversations to bring people into the community as opposed to making them continue to feel like they're outsiders. So I do agree with that. But, I have to say in this case too, I mean, we have to think about the elected officials who have, I think, a responsibility to truth and integrity. And so some of our members of Congress and have not done that. And, I want to raise something because it seems so relevant to me. I was reading about Margaret Chase Smith, who in 1950, a Republican congresswoman stood up to not only condemn her own party, but to condemn the other party. And she said, and I'm standing up as a Republican and a woman about the lies about McCarthyism. And what she said was she didn't want to see a party that lacked political integrity or intellectual honesty. And I have to look at this, but she said she wanted to have 4 horsemen of calumny and to object to fear, ignorance, bigotry, and smear. And that's what's happened in our politics. We have that now. And I think that she was a really good example of why, people who are in elected official power need to really have integrity. And unfortunately, people don't always vote for those people, but it's part of it.
And I appreciate your reflections. And I want to take a couple of questions from the audience too here. Okay. One that really resonates with me is because and I'll just say, I have people in my life who are QAnon believers and supporters. They're people who are rational. They're people who I know. And that is what they believe. There may be some in this Rotary Club for all I know, right? I mean, this is what I mean by a sort of this extreme, 2 different very extreme views of what's real, right? So the question is, many of the Republican congressional representatives believe in QAnon. Isn't the genie out of the bottle? There's something bigger going on. From your vantage point, Ann, what is that?
I guess the question is what's bigger that's going on, and it's hard to remediate this and to figure out. You asked earlier what we could do about it, and I think it's not an easy answer, and I don't think a lot of people have the answer. And by the way, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I want to suggest that everybody look at something that the Rand Corporation wrote a number of years ago. It's called Truth Decay, and it was written in response to people who were saying, that President Obama was not an American citizen and not born in the United States, and spoke to a lot of these problems about media and the way that media is encouraging divisiveness, and the fact that there is no standard way that people now believe in what is factual, because so much of the media involves opinion. And we see that on both sides, not just QAnon, not just right. On the internet. You see it on national TV, where, it used to be there were, and also the lack of newspapers that do true investigative reporting. So I just feel like we're in that environment that needs to be fixed.
Going to the Wayback Machine here, one of our Rotarians has a question. Do you agree with Kathleen Jameson that but for Russian hackers and trolls that Hillary Clinton would have won the last election? If so, that's a huge problem for our democracy. Your thoughts?
I do believe it. I think it's both because of the hackers and the fact that Comey stood up and talked about, the emails as if they were, some really horrendous thing, and about the fact that he did that because of Russian hackers that had infiltrated the Justice Department, or the Department of U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. And I think that also the disinformation and the total lies that they spread, that we know. And let me just add something that I do know. There was a study done on the disinformation by the University of Ohio. And the study that they did included showing the false information to people, and the people who saw the false information did not vote for Hillary, and the people who didn't believe it did vote for her.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that I think her conclusion is correct.
I would want to get your thoughts, and of course we only have a few more minutes here, but I would want to get your thoughts on what role, this didn't start with the 2016 election, right? I mean, we've been building up to this, to your point about the survey done in the 50s and the survey done now about trust in government and people feeling disenfranchised on both sides of the aisle. You can't help but notice looking at who was at the Capitol on the 6th, that it was primarily white people. What role does race and racism and our country's history of racism play in this moment?
Mm-hmm. Well, it plays a really major aspect of it, because I mean, honestly, going back to for example, to your discussion of the 2016 election, what we also know was that African Americans were targeted for misinformation and for voter suppression. And the targeting was specific about terrible things that Hillary Clinton apparently did to African Americans, and therefore them saying, and this came from the Russian, news agency, it didn't come, we know, and saying, just don't go out to vote. And as a result, in swing states, 8% of African Americans, it was 8% lower than the normal turnout rate for them, because they decided just to stay home. And there were a lot of other groups that were fake groups that were supposedly Black Facebook groups that were not. They were from Russia, but they said to people to stay home and not to vote. So race and race issues are certainly an aspect of this.
Yeah, I think all over it for sure. I just want to call out, the vote is happening right now as we speak. So maybe after we can get Congressman Schiff on for 5 minutes. I'm kidding. One final
Why
question.
would you want to come on after I've done it?
I know, right? How do you follow Ann Ravel? I mean, really, come on. So I've got at least one, maybe two additional questions here for you, Ann.
Okay.
I know you've got a fairly hard stop at one. So why is it that so many political candidates are spending practically all their money on social media ad buys, on political consultants who spread untruths, rather than investing in traditional media that verifies facts, educates the public about civic issues, and gets people on the same page by promoting a common discussion rather than micro-targeting? Guess what?
Well, whoever asked that question, I wish that were the case. But what all consultants, as you all know, I ran for office, what they tell you is you've got to go on social media, because that's where you can spread to more audiences. And so it's all a pragmatic reason.
We got frozen there so that they didn't hear your last response.
I think we did, Fernando.
Ah,
Go ahead, Ann, if you want to repeat
I
that.
just said that it was a pragmatic reason to be able to spread more information on behalf of the candidate, as opposed to having thoughtful discussions. Unfortunately, our political campaigns don't generally consist of thoughtful discussions.
One last question here. Do you think the media was harder on the protests, the insurrection at the Capitol, than on protests and destruction by Black Lives Matter?
I wouldn't be able to analyze how hard the media was on it, but I will say that from my own vantage point, that what was done at the Capitol building, in my opinion, was so much more destructive to our democracy and more abhorrent than any of the protests that I saw. And while I don't condone violence anywhere, I think that there's more truth to in some of those other protests, the Black Lives Matters protests. There was more truth that they were confronted in a way that the Black Lives Matter protests.
Make it tomorrow and have Felix eat it.
Guys,
Felix.
somebody's not muted. Can you please mute? Make sure you're muted.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ann.
But anyway, I think there's a distinction, and frankly, rightfully so. What happened at the Capitol building, which, you know, I myself have spent a lot of time there and seen it from walking across the street, looking at it and staring at it. I mean, I just feel that that what happened there was so scary and such a strong signal that we have to really do something to make change to ameliorate and strengthen our democracy.
And each of us as Rotarians has an opportunity to do so and take this day as a call to action. Ann, I want to thank you so much for stepping in last minute and being in conversation. I really appreciate your perspective, and I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here.
I also want to say our heartfelt thanks to you, Ann, and to you, Suzanne, for helping our club pivot after Congressman Adam Schiff had to reschedule today's program because of these tumultuous events going on in the nation's capital as we speak. We're all hoping for a peaceful presidential transition on January 20th. We'll have to stay glued to our news. So thank you both. I know, Ann, that you have to leave now. You have a 1 o'clock hard stop. So thank you very much. And now we'll go back to our regular programming. Okay, now we want to bring in past club president in 2016 and 17, Cindy Faulkner, who'll give us a culinary and hospitality committee update. Madam President, are you there? Come in, Cindy. Well, this has posed a problem for.
I'm here. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I forgot to unmute myself. I don't want to be the one coughing in the room, but
take it away.
Thank you so much, President Fernando. And it's hard to follow Ann after all of that. That was great. But it's my pleasure to talk about culinary and hospitality. I've personally been on this committee, which I can't believe, for 15 years now. From what I understand, it was started by Bert George, and I'm not exactly sure what year that was, but when I joined, Mike Filarski and Tom Kane were the chairs. And I learned so much in regards to cooking from Tom. He was amazing. We actually created a cookbook of recipes in his honor. So I just wanted to share that. It was a great time in the committee. But this committee is all about great food, entertainment, service to our club. And we plan and host the annual holiday luncheon and the entertainment. We enjoy decorating the Gordon House for the holidays every year. We also donate and prepare a fun, creative, fine dining experience as an auction item at our Rotary Gala every year. We truly enjoy supporting the events of other committees in our club throughout the year, including Red Badger socials with Blue Badgers and things like that. Lots of different activities. BC, which AKA before COVID, we met most months, various locations, members' homes, the Gordon House. And we usually have a theme where we share recipes and enjoy samplings of each other's cook, recipes or meals or whatever it is. Sometimes we have, what was the last one that I can remember? Biscuits and gravy, I think was the theme. But we've had a couple Zoom meetings this year, but honestly, not very many meetings, unfortunately. But we did have a great holiday Zoom recently with all of you, and thanks to our chair, Matt Breaker. I'm really just a sidekick, but we all love this committee very much, and there's about 30 of us, believe it or not. So there's a lot of creativity amongst the diverse group of chefs that we have. We do feel that we are somewhat chefs, I think. You'll see here in this photo that this is our past auction dinner that we hosted. It was Flavors of Aloha. The dinner was held at my home for the auction winners, which is Carl and Kathy Silker and their guests. Upon arrival, give you a little bit of what it's like. Each guest was presented with a cuckoo nut lei worn by Hawaiian royalty and given to special friends in the spirit of aloha. During the cocktail hour, guests enjoyed specialty cocktails, sparkling wine, delicious hors d'oeuvres, beautiful Hawaiian music, and a relaxing waterfall. Some of the guests even enjoyed a round of bocce. The table decor was designed by Elaine Sullivan.
10 seconds.
Oh, really? I thought I had 4 minutes. Okay.
It was, but you lost out a little bit. Hurry.
Okay. Well, we also do the blind wine tasting with Cindy and Bird, and it's a great time. We have an ultimate cocktail party coming up that hopefully when COVID's over, we can get that going. And that's us, CHC. We make great food, but also create wonderful memories. Thanks, Fernando.
Thank you very much. And now we've got famed Voices and Accents MC, Sean O'Kane, who'll tell us what events the Fun and Friendship Committee has planned for us. Sean.
Thank you, President Fernando. Fun and Friendships will be presenting 3 Zoom opportunities for all of us to connect. The first one is Songs and Schmoozing, hosted by Jeremy Harris, and that'll be on January 28th at 6:30 p.m. This is variations of Name That Tune, using hints from lyrics, famous performers, movies, Broadway shows, and of course, melodies on the piano. Jeremy says it's designed for all levels, including Bryan Adams. Just kidding, Brian, we miss you. So everyone gets to play, no rush, no time factors, and should be fun for everyone. The second event is Share Your Pet, hosted by Karen Fox on February 2nd at 7 p.m. Meet our furry family members who keep us sane during shelter in place. And it's a more intimate event to truly learn about each other, and there's 10 spots available. And of course, the third one is Rotary San Jose's 2021 Trivia Contest, Not for the Faint-Hearted, hosted by yours truly. This will be on February 3rd at 6:30 p.m. This is everything you ever wanted to know, but were afraid to ask about the arts, geography, science, history, along with surprise entertainment personalities, and of course, a mix of potpourri. And I'm not talking about a mixture of dried petals and spices placed in a bowl or a small sack to perfume clothing or a room. This will be limited to 10 to 12 registrations with prizes. The first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado, or just kidding, or a 60-second video production with Big Kahuna Productions. And this could be for your business or organization. So you're not getting the Cadillac Eldorado for first prize. Second prize will be a nice bottle of wine. And third prize is a set of steak knives, or maybe just a nice package of Rotary chocolates. More likely, you're going to get the Rotary chocolates. So join us for these no-cost opportunities to connect. And registration links will be in this week's bulletin. And you'll receive your Zoom invite as soon as you register. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean. Sign me up. All right, next we've got my time. Early registration for Rotary International Conference in Taipei still goes until February 15th. And I'm sad to report that our Rotarian, Roy Russell, passed away on last Thursday due to cardiac issues. He and I joined Rotary in 1983. His middle school buddy, Mike Conniff, will eulogize him in one of our February meetings. And also, members, please do your best to participate in our club's activities by agreeing to share an inspirational thought with us when Terry Austin calls you. This is your chance to stay involved with our club. And let me see. I think we've got some time here. Dennis, I wasn't sure whether it was Fong or Wilcox. Are you still, the Dennis still there that indicated a willingness to contribute to our fine opportunities? If so, speak up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Presidente.
All right.
Ring the bell.
Okay, you've got what, eight bells, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Do you have anything that you want to honor?
Our dear friend, Mr. Boo, Larry Boo's birthday.
Mr. Boo, Larry Boo. All right, here you go. Hey, that'll really put our foundation funds up quite a bit, Dennis. Thank you very much. I'm glad we had the time. I'm glad you stuck around to participate. And this opens up more room for others who want to go back to our regularly scheduled fine opportunities at the last Wednesday of each month. So you still have time. There's got to be some good news that you have out there, Rotarians, and that you want to share with us. So at the same time that you share with us, you're helping us raise the funds that our club committees really desperately need in order to carry out the good works. Next week, we've got a speaker, a retired sergeant from the St. Louis, Missouri Metropolitan Police Department, Heather Taylor, who'll be speaking on the Ethical Society of Police, in case that's of some interest to you. She's the spokesperson for the Ethical Society of Police, and she'll discuss some studies that were made in the evaluation of police corruption and racial issues which they have tried to address. So that'll be retired Sergeant Heather Taylor. Now, to paraphrase my favorite immigrant governor, hasta la vista, Rotarians. The regular part of this Zoom meeting stands adjourned, and we all have to go back to our TV sets to see what the heck's going on in Washington, D.C. So pray for us and stay healthy, everyone. See you next Wednesday.